So you're looking to buy a house in 2025. Well, you've come to the right video. My name is Madison Arthur, a local real estate broker here in Seattle, helping you buy and sell throughout the entire Northwest Washington region. Today we're going to be breaking down the home buying process. Everything from meeting a real estate broker, getting your financing in place, the search process, negotiating, and your due diligence, making sure you have a good investment in your hands, all the way to closing. And I hope you watch this video and have a little bit more clarity on how this process works. First, you have your lender. This is the person who helps you obtain your financing and is really important for all the money going on in your transaction. The second is your real estate broker, which is where I fall in terms of a transaction. This is your all-in-one resource. We kind of do everything. So with home buying, we help you with the search process, we help you write offers and negotiate, make sure that you have a really good investment on your hands, so we handle all of the due diligence. And then also foresee the entire closing process, so checking off timelines, making sure everything goes smoothly. Overall, we kind of are an advocate and an educator. Those are our two main roles, and it's really important to have good representation in a transaction because you're handling a lot of money, but you're also handling a lot of legal paperwork, so you don't want to have anything missed, and that's really important to us. Now lastly, you have your title team and escrow team. Technically, I've seen many times where they're separate, but I personally work with a company who does both. So title is the transfer of ownership. This is when the official legal ownership of the home is transferred to you in the process, and this happens during that contract to closing period, which is after you've purchased the property, you've written an offer, it's been accepted, and the time that you actually close on it, keys in hand. So the title works on that, and at the same time, escrow is handling all of the funds. So after we know, what loan amount you're getting, what all of the terms are after negotiation, the escrow team transfers all of the money to different parties, and they seamlessly organize it all for you, and you'll get a closing statement from them that handles everything dollar by dollar. So ultimately, very important to have title and escrow. These are the people who legally bind you to your property and finalize all of the important paperwork as well as money. So those are your kind of three or four components in terms of your team. So the first step in this process is to get your loan. And what you're going to want to do is partner with a local lender. I have my preferred partner listed down below. But what I really recommend is to always pick somebody local. And the reason why is because they specialize in local home loans within your region, and they tend to give the best advice. What I will also say is before you start searching for homes, you need to get a pre-approval letter. Pre-approval letter is essentially a document that says I can afford XYZ for my home, and I'm financially ready and capable of purchasing it. You will need this when writing an offer. Now, when you're looking at different loan options, I'm going to run through some of the most basics so you understand what they are. And then I also just wanted to quickly touch on the importance of looking into different financing options. Right now, we have a market where interest rates are pretty high when you're comparing that to the actual prices of homes, especially in the Seattle market. So you should talk to your lender about options to do rate buydowns, which is purchasing with an extra fee, a lower interest rate for a designated period of time. And when you have a property that you have some negotiation leeway, for example, one that has been on the market for a long time, you can actually ask the seller to pay for some of these buydowns, which again, we're going to talk about this a little bit later. Just keep that in the back of your mind and make sure to ask your lender about buydown options. Now let's jump into a couple of the different types of standard loans that you'll see in the market. The first is a conventional loan. This is your most typical loan. They range from 15 to 30 years, and typically we see buyers put around 20% down payment. Now, you can absolutely make a lower down payment. I've seen as low as 10 or even less. Depending on what your financial situation is, your loan officer will guide you into what makes sense for your personal situation. But yeah, that's loan option number 1. Option number 2 is an FHA loan. In this current market, I don't see them very often. In fact, even first-time home buyers tend to sway more towards conventional loans. That being said, they are an option out there, and you can get, a home for as low as 3.5% down. Now, you will be paying a premium insurance for that, but just know it's an option out there if you really want to enter the market, but you don't have the financial backing in terms of a down payment. There's also VA loans. These are for veterans, and I really recommend these. If you are a veteran and you can purchase a home, I would absolutely use a VA loan. I just helped a buyer purchase a $550,000 house with $4,500 cash total. Now, another financing option that you can do is all cash. I will say if you can afford to pay for a property with all cash, you will have a slight advantage when going up against other offers because that means you will have a much faster closing timeline. And I know that there are people out there, especially here, who pursue this option, so just know that that's out there. So after securing your pre-approval letter, you're going to start working with a real estate broker and begin the search process. Now, the first thing I will say is that there tends to be in Seattle, the greater Seattle area, kind of a timeline when homes come on the market and come off the market. So for a popular single-family property, there tends to be a day of the week, which is Wednesday, sometimes Thursday, when listings come on the market. And then you do your due diligence, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, and then write your offer that following Monday or Tuesday. This is when typically brokers review offers. There's an offer review date. And that's kind of how the weekly cycle goes. Now, this isn't for every property, but just keep that in mind as you start your search process. Now, when we start the search process, you're going to want to start off pretty broad. And the reason that I recommend this is because homes tend to be 80% perfect. Just means to say that a lot of times people's wants and needs are pretty different and they find a happy medium between the two. So this is kind of what the MLS looks like. This is what we real estate brokers see. It's a massive database showing all of the real estate for sale in a given area, and we're going to lay out your key parameters, all of your needs, and adjust these different features as needed. And then once we have your search established, you're going to start receiving emails with new listings. And just keep in mind that this MLS system is kind of the master document or software for all of the other softwares out there like Redfin and Zillow. So anything that you see on Zillow or Redfin or Homes.com was pulled from this database. So as you begin the search process, you'll start seeing properties that you like. What I typically do is we have a designated day to start touring properties so you can start to see things that might be a good fit. And then as we tour together, you'll start to learn more about what you like, and then I can kind of see that as well. And then we start to refine that search almost like a funnel until you have a rolling top 3. And so the search process continues until you found a home that's a really good fit. So now the next step in the process is to do your due diligence, which is the most important step in this process. Well, what you're going to want to do is have your broker reach out to the listing broker and obtain the following if you can. The first is a pre-inspection report. This is when an inspector goes into the property and reviews every major defect or issue with the home, and this document outlines everything. Now, in the Seattle-Bellevue, kind of greater Northwest Washington market, it's really common for sellers to offer this. Not every market does. And if they don't have a pre-inspection, you'll want to probably include a contingency, which we'll be talking about contingencies later. But just keep in mind that that's out there. So first document you're going to want to get, if you can, is a pre-inspection. The next document you're going to want to get is called a seller disclosure statement. Seller disclosure statements outline everything that the previous owner knows about the house. Now, this is always going to be overridden by the pre-inspection. The pre-inspection you'll want to trust more than this because a seller disclosure statement, or otherwise known as Form 17, is to the owner's best knowledge. And so you can't always trust that because they might not remember certain things, but it is always good to review because they will outline kind of the basics, the major things that you might want to know. Okay, so the next document is the title report. As mentioned, you're going to have title transferred, which means the history of ownership. So a title report is just that. It is a document outlining the history of ownership. And it's really important to review this because what you're going to see is any issues like encumbrances or encroachments in the home, property disputes, things like that, liens, anything that would affect the ability of the home's ownership to be transferred to you. This document is really important to review, and again, one that you probably can get from the listing broker pretty easily. So definitely recommend reviewing that. The last that I will mention today is the CC&Rs, and these are condo specific. So these are kind of the rules and regulations of a homeowners association, and it's a big document. Oftentimes it can be pages and pages outlining the HOA's financial health, the condo building's financial and physical health. So overall, really, really important because it's going to tell you if the building that you're purchasing your condo in is a good investment. So those are the 4 key documents. If you can't get all of these, there are ways around it, which I'll be explaining here in a second. But if you can, I just recommend getting all of those before you write an offer, because then you can vet out the property and really see if it's a worthy investment of your time and your money. Okay, so now that you've vetted out the property, it's time to write an offer. Let's look at the chart I created. So there are a few key areas of an offer that influence its overall competitive strength. Depending on the time of year, days on market, neighborhood trends, conversations with a listing broker, and a variety of other factors, your real estate broker will guide you to understanding if the home is going to be potentially a multi-offer situation or not. In the Seattle-Bellevue market, inventory is low and competition tends to be high, so writing a strong offer is key here. And in this particular video, I'm going to kind of discuss how to create a strong offer and some of the levers that will be more for you, so protecting the buyer, and those that are going to be more competitive. And so I kind of want to walk through what those are and how you can kind of push them in either direction depending on your wants and your needs. First, we're going to start off with price. So for a home that has been on the market for a while, you might be able to ask for a lower purchase price, and in a competitive situation, the gold standard is list price or to include an escalation. Let's look at an escalation example. So you've got a purchase price of $550,000, but you're willing to go all the way up to $600,000 should there be another interested party. You choose to include increments of $5,000. So let's say another party comes to write an offer at $580,000 without an escalation. Well, your new purchase price then becomes $585,000. Kind of an example of how an escalation works and a way that you can make your offer more competitive without having to commit to a higher purchase price. Now let's look at a non-competitive offer situation. As mentioned earlier, one of the things that you can do with purchase price is instead of lowering it, there is a clause in your contract, as shown here, that you can actually ask for closing cost credits. And this basically just means cash back in your pocket to cover all of the closing costs. So they can cost, thousands of dollars with the expenses to pay for title and escrow and all of these different things. By asking for closing cost credits, you can actually cover those entirely. But the best way to think about it is cash back instead of reducing your purchase price and getting a lower monthly payment. Okay, so the next part of writing an offer is your earnest money deposit. This is a refundable typically, but you also have the option to make it non-refundable. It's a security deposit, and in the Seattle market, you're going to want to put 3 to 5%. Now, what's important to know about earnest money is that should you back out of contract without a contingency in place, which we'll be talking about momentarily, you'll have to give this away. So what it does is it protects the seller from committing to you without having some kind of financial backing to it. And it's a way to legally say you're serious about purchasing this home. You don't have the intent to back away because now you have some kind of security deposit obligation into it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the word I've mentioned quite a lot in this video, which is your contingencies. Now, how would I describe a contingency? A contingency to your offer is like having an escape plan in case something goes wrong. This way you can back out of buying the house and get your deposit back after you go into mutual acceptance. Contingencies are in the forms of legal documents, and you include them into your purchase and sale agreement, allowing you additional days to research and confirm different aspects of the contract. The most common and important are your inspection contingency, financing contingency, and title contingency. Inspection contingencies are the most important in the transaction because they really tell you if the property is a sound investment or not. And like I said, you can typically get a pre-inspection from the seller, but if that doesn't happen, you can also include an inspection contingency where after you go into mutual acceptance, so after you have an offer accepted, you can outline a designated amount of time, so usually 2 to 3 to 4 days, depending on the situation, to have your own inspection done. So you have an inspector go out to the home, review everything. They'll walk on the roof, they'll go in the crawl space, they'll look at the walls, they'll look at electrical, they look at everything. And they'll give you a detailed report outlining all of the issues. And then what you can do from there is, if you find something that you don't like, you can actually extend your period of time to have a specialist come out. So let's say the inspector finds some issues with the electrical. Well, then you now have an allotted period of time to then have an electrician out to go see what's going on. And then once you have seen everything that you'd like to know about the house, you have a few options. The first is you can back out of the contract so you don't have to purchase the house anymore. The second is that you can ask for money, so you can ask the seller to fund some of the bills that are needed to fix whatever problem arises that you see. You can also ask for repairs, so you can request that the seller make changes to the home based off of what you found on the inspection report. Or lastly, you can waive it. So if you find that the home is in good condition and there's nothing major that you need to do, you can just waive that and on with the transaction you go. Now, I will also just kind of make a remark here that your broker and your inspector, of course, will help you figure out what you actually should ask for, because depending on the situation, it's always going to be a little bit different, and depending on the home, of course, too. So the next contingency that you can add is a financing contingency. Now, this is the reason that you always want to get a pre-approval. When you have a pre-approval, it basically tells you that you're set for financing. And so when a competitive situation arises, you can actually waive the financing contingency if you have all of that set up. And that's another reason why it's super, super important to find a good lender with a good closing timeline and one that you know that you can get a loan from. So really my best advice is have everything for financing sorted out before you write an offer. But if something happens and you feel like you might need to change your loan, or you just want that extra protection and it's a non-competitive situation, include the financing contingency. What I will say is always add extra protection to your offer if there aren't other competing buyers, but that's what a financing contingency is and why you would want to include one. Okay, so next we're going to jump into title contingencies. So you know what a title report is. If you can't get your hands on the title report before you write an offer, it's always important to include one of these because that's a document that you will want to review and vet out. Something that I do, and I know a lot of other people do as well, is brokers tend to work with a title representative who can go over the title for you. And so what I do is called a red flag review. So title rep will look through everything and say, hey, this looks great. Oh, there's some problems. And that will then allow you to, waive the title contingency or back out of the contract. But again, one of the really important things to vet out. The last major component of writing an offer is your timeline. So every seller is a little bit different, and that'll be something that you have to gauge, in terms of what they need and what they want. But generally speaking, sellers want a quicker, faster timeline to close. Usually it takes about 1 month from contract to close, so mutual acceptance to keys in hand. But you can actually get this done a lot faster if you work with your real estate broker and your lender. So your lender will tell you how fast they can get their loan done, and that will then influence what time you can close. But typically when you're writing an offer, your broker and your lender will work together to find that date for you, and that will be what you want to use. Again, faster timeline can be better, but if you have sellers who maybe live in the property or something along those lines, you might have to extend the time that it takes to close, and if you're a buyer, if you have specific wants and needs, you can also write your offer to align with the things that you need. And that's really important too, is to make sure that when looking at this whole process, all of offer writing, make sure that everything that you do is a happy medium between having a strong, clean, good offer, but also protecting your best interests and making sure that everything that you do is aligned with your wants and needs as a buyer. So after you've written your offer, and let's say it got accepted, we're going to go ahead and say it did, yay. From here, you're going to have key deadlines and dates kind of to check off, and your escrow team is going to kind of come in and take the center stage. They're the ones who manage, like I said, all of the final documents and transfer of money, and so you're going to have to give them lots of information and, sign lots of signatures, and they're also going to be sort of wrapping everything up for you. You'll receive a closing cost statement, which has all of the funds between seller and buyer. And then your broker is also going to be in close contact with you, making sure that you have all of the necessary checkpoints and deadlines. So as mentioned earlier, if you have a couple of contingencies, they'll be walking you through, making sure you get your inspections done if need be, and making sure your financing goes through, etc. And then from there, you reach your closing, which is exciting. So you're going to work with a notary and get your documents signed, transferring ownership, and then transferring money, of course, as well. Again, escrow is going to help you with that side of things. And then finally, get the keys and officially move into your new home. And so that's kind of overall a very broad, generalized version of the process. I thought it would be helpful to kind of make a video outlining the general steps and some of the important things to know. So I hope this was really helpful for you. If there's other things that I can clarify or information that you might want to know, please comment down below, because I'm going to make a lot more videos on real estate in the Seattle kind of area. So if that interests you, follow along. And if you do have any needs as a buyer or seller, my information is linked down below, and I do help people all over Northwest Washington. So thank you so much for watching, and I wish you a great rest of your day. Bye.